In this episode, we're summarizing the 7th episode from Season 4 of the Wire series titled Unto Others. The episode first aired on October 29, 2006. In the beginning, we see Omar is in his cell reading a book when Butchie's assigned bodyguards show up. They secure thick phone books to Omar's chest, while in the cafeteria line, an inmate tries to attack Omar, but he quickly disarms and harms him, sending a message to all potential threats. Omar exits the scene before the guards arrive. Butchie's men inform Omar that Marlo Stanfield put a bounty on him. Omar borrows a cell phone from one of the guys and calls in a favor owed to him by the police. Detective Bunk Moreland goes to the city jail to meet Omar, who hands him a card from Assistant State's Attorney Eileen Nathan, thanking him for testifying in the trial of Marquise Bird Hilton. Bunk downplays the card, emphasizing the seriousness of Omar's current charge for a taxpayer murder. Omar defends himself, mentioning his past assistant to Bunk. Omar claims that Old Face Andre, the witness, is lying and is involved with drug dealers. Bunk points out other crimes that Omar is tied to, but Omar manages to persuade Bunk by telling him that by jailing him, he would only be freeing the true murderer who took out the innocent lady. Omar reminds him that every man must follow a code. After speaking with Omar, Bunk urges Detectives Holly and Crutchfield to dismiss Omar's case, emphasizing Omar's innocence. However, Crutchfield rejects the idea outright and becomes upset with Bunk for getting involved in the first place. Bunk then heads over to Eileen Nathan. She expresses disinterest, noting that she agreed to help Omar with a minor offense, but not murder. Bunk requests at least a transfer to a safer place, persuading her about Omar's owed favor. Eventually, she agrees and tells Bunk that she has now officially paid her debt to Omar. As we catch up with Carcetti, he and Wilson meet up with Mayor Royce and his Chief of Staff Coleman Parker in a friendly discussion about their recent campaign. Carcetti acknowledges Teresa D'Agostino's new role at the DCCC. They talk about the slumlord pamphlets, with Carcetti praising the move, unaware that it wasn't supported by Royce's team. Royce emphasizes the challenge of Carcetti winning the general election in a city heavily favoring Democrats, reinforcing that he will definitely be the next mayor, especially since there is no way a Republican can ever win in Baltimore. During a CompStat meeting chaired by Commissioner Irving Burrell and Deputy William Rawls, Western District Commander Cedric Daniels outlines his strategy of prioritizing felony cases over street-level arrests. Instead of forcing low-level drug busts, he deploys 2 officer units per car on major drug corners while allocating resources to pursue more substantial criminal cases. Daniels acknowledges that this approach has led to a drop in homicides, but an increase in other felonies. When asked if he takes credit for the reduced homicide rate, Daniels refuses, stating he does not want to be blamed when the trend inevitably reverses. Carcetti, who has arrived to observe the meeting, listens as Burrell grows irritated. Daniels admits to merely displacing street crime rather than making arrests, further angering Burrell, who also takes offense when Daniels implies that his officers lack proper training for the quality casework that they are demanding. In a meeting with Wilson, Watkins, and Jerry, Carcetti discusses their first move after taking office. He believes replacing Irving Burrell as police commissioner should be a priority. Watkins agrees, stating he had previously advised Royce to fire Burrell a few years ago, but due to support from ministers and Royce's ambitions as a mayor, he refused. Carcetti proposes firing Burrell himself, but Watkins argues that while acceptable for Royce, such an action done by Carcetti could face voter backlash from the black community that supported him in the first place. Norman Wilson agrees, acknowledging the potential for a negative response. However, we notice that Burrell has protected himself from being reappointed by not allowing any other African American to exist in the department beyond the rank of mayor or shift lieutenant, making it difficult for a political figure like Carcetti to replace him, because replacing him with a white police commissioner would not be a good look politically in the media for Carcetti, and thus Burrell remains as the commissioner even though he is clearly not the man for the job. We see from the very beginning how change is not as easy as Carcetti may have thought. Politically, Carcetti cannot just pick the best candidate to lead the police department. He is stuck with Burrell because of what he represents. As we catch up with the major case unit, Herc and Sidnor are watching footage from their camera, and they don't really know what they are seeing. They realize they are seeing moving birds and that the camera has in fact been stolen. Marlo has sent his men to steal the camera after a recommendation made to him by Proposition Joe. Marlo wants to know who is investigating him, and Proposition Joe recommends that the only way he can ever know is to steal the asset and see who comes looking for it. Herc goes to Carver to tell him about the lost camera, and Herc is worried that his career will be over if his lieutenant finds out that he was running a secret investigation into Marlowe behind his back. At the same time, Carver is with Randy, and Carver calls Bunk to tell him about Randy being a witness and how he needs to handle this information with care because he does not want Randy to be labeled a snitch on the streets and essentially destroy his life. However, Carver cannot reach Bunk and leaves a message instead with Detective Crutchfield, but Crutchfield tosses the message away because he is still upset with Bunk taking the murder charge off of Omar in the first place. Carver leaves Randy with Herc and Sidnor, and Herc promptly takes Randy to an interview room where he pressures Randy into giving him information regarding the camera that Marlowe's crew stole from him. Randy does not know about the camera and instead tells Herc about his knowledge of Lex's murder. Herc grows enraged and pressures Randy into saying that he himself witnessed the murder. Herc and Sidnor then take Randy home, and Randy requests to be dropped off a few blocks away from his home so he is not seen with police officers. Later on, Dookie, Michael, and Kareem are eating their lunch in Prez's classroom, but Prez notices that they are gambling. He tells them that they can stay to eat, but gambling for money is not something he will tolerate. Prez also suggests to Kareem that he needs to learn how to bet based on the odds. Michael then asks Prez to elaborate on what odds are. Prez then asks his administrator Donnelly if the school has any board game, and she sends him to the book storage room, but reminds him that he must stick to the curriculum. He finds a large amount of brand new textbooks and computers that his children could be using, but the school will not relinquish to them. This is a powerful scene because we can see how the education system, just like the justice system, is just as badly managed. Instead of focusing on lessons that can benefit the lives of their students, the teachers are forced to quote-unquote stick to the curriculum rather than teaching real-life lessons they may use on their day-to-day. Money that is spent on assets like books and technology are safeguarded rather than used because they fear it will expose the mismanagement. After school, Michael goes to visit Namond, who has set himself up across the street from a competing crew. Michael tells Namond that the competing crew is clearly not happy with him being there, but Namond does not seem to understand because he just doesn't have that instinctual awareness in him like Michael does. Namond has led a pretty sheltered life, and we see that he is not cut out for a life on the streets. The leader of the other crew on the other side of the street sends Sherrod to scare Namond off. Later on that night, Sherrod hits Namond and Namond backs away, pleading for Sherrod to stop. Sherrod then proceeds to beat on him until Cuddy steps in to stop the fight. Cuddy sends Namond inside, and Namond lies about the fight and says that he was the one beating Sherrod, but everyone can see his busted lip. Following day, Namond relocates to another corner, and Little Kennard complains about having to move to a new location. These events remind us of what Wee-Bey once told Namond when he first visited him in prison. Wee-Bey told Namond, either you're real out there or you're not. To watch the next or previous episode summary, click on the link in the description or at the end of this video. If you made it to the end of this video, remember that I am summarizing this entire series and other popular works of culture such as literature, movies, and TV shows. I have playlists of the summaries for those lists in the description. Also, if you found the video to be valuable, share it with a friend and click like so that YouTube can recommend it to other viewers like you. The best way to support this channel is on Patreon or by buying us a coffee. You will find those links in the description as well. Doing these things will help this channel out tremendously. I really thank you for your support.